Yeah, so my name's Robbie, and I guess I've suffered with anxiety, depression, some PTSD, and I guess through that was a lot of alcohol and drug abuse.
Yeah. What kind of symptoms did you experience, and what did that feel like for you? How did they represent themselves?
So I guess some symptoms that I guess I experienced through that. Anxiety for me was, it's very hard to put into words, but some feelings of paranoia of something really bad happening to me or my friends or family around me. Depression was pretty dark, gloomy at times, and through that I really struggled with alcohol and drug abuse as well. So that was just a fuel to the fire, I guess, but it was a way that I could, I guess, just take myself out of the present and take me to somewhere else where, you know, it didn't, those things weren't occurring. So it was definitely a mask for me for a lot of years.
Yeah. What kind of things do you think contributed towards those mental illnesses for yourself?
It's only really me realising now that a lot of these thought patterns that I still have actually derive from, you know, certain instances when I was a kid, which, you know, I didn't really know at the time, but it's crazy to think that an instance like, you know, 25 years ago can still have such a large effect on me and the way I think and the way I do things these days. But I guess a lot of it was I never really thought highly of myself for a lot of years, and that dates back to when I was a kid as well. So I'd always struggled with low self-esteem and really struggled with, I guess, my identity and who I was, where I was going. And that's when I sort of turned to alcohol and never had a really good relationship with alcohol. I guess I used it as an escape.
What was the lowest point, and what did that look like for you at that space?
So I guess there's been a lot of, you know, low points, but one that really sticks in my mind was it was 2015. I was in America and I had a really bad experience on drugs, and I was fortunate that I was with a couple of good friends at the time, but that really sent me on a path. Obviously the anxiety and depression followed that, but yeah, I actually haven't shared this story with anyone, but I was in the States, and actually at the time I was traveling with my dad and we were doing a big road trip, and he wanted to go to a gun club, you know, shoot some guns like you do in the States. Leading up to the couple of days before we were at this gun range, I was just so scared. I was scared of hurting someone, or like, not that, you know, I would never have done anything like that intentionally, but I was just so terrified that, you know, I wouldn't be able to handle myself in that situation in some way. I didn't know what it looked like, but I just had this overwhelming feeling of, you know, something bad could happen. And that was quite traumatic. I didn't really know how to process that too much. So I came home from that trip, and a couple of weeks later I was actually a first responder to a head-on car crash. And this happened on a country road. I was living with my parents at the time because I was in between jobs, and I was driving back to their place in the country and came across a head-on car crash that had literally just happened. And fortunate there was obviously other people that stopped as well, but, you know, we had to, with the help of a few other people, we had to basically break this driver's door open and get this guy out because he had suffered severe head injuries and whatnot. And having to lift him out of the car and start doing CPR. I mean, it wasn't me doing CPR, but I was right there, sort of heavily involved until, you know, paramedics came. And following that, you know, I thought I was doing pretty well. I thought I was processing it okay, and quite fortunate that my mum, being a nurse, she's been exposed to that sort of stuff quite often, and she sort of really drummed it into me that you need to debrief and you need to process this with someone professionally, because it's not normal for you to experience or being witness to something like that, but it's totally normal to actually feel certain things and whatnot. So it was actually maybe a few weeks later, I just got back into working fly out again, and just really wasn't coping well. I started having these really bad anxiety attacks. They came when I was driving. I'd wake up all of a sudden in the middle of the night and having panic attack. I could be having a conversation with someone, and from the outside, it looked like I was doing perfectly fine, but in my mind, I was just a complete mess. I always got this overwhelming feeling of like paranoia of something really bad happening to my friends, my family, myself, and I put it back to obviously post that car incident. I'd never really had to grieve for anyone in a way, or in that sort of way. Like I knew people that had passed away, but no one really that close that I'd ever had to like properly grieve for. And I just felt connected to this guy in a way that I didn't really know that I could, and that was me grieving. And you have flashbacks to the incident. You drive past the crash site, and all I felt like doing was just veering my car off the road straight into a tree, just because I didn't know how to process what I was going through. I made an appointment with a psychologist and started seeing her pretty frequently for about a year and a half. And I guess I've got different experiences with seeking help. Back then I was at a point where I still wasn't comfortable in what I was going through, or comfortable within myself. Still battled alcohol abuse. I obviously hadn't touched drugs since that incident while I was away overseas, but I just felt like I was falling back into bad habits and whatnot, and using alcohol as a suppressor.
Yeah.
So I started seeing someone quite regularly. I guess the first conversation I did have with a psychologist, I walked out of that room, feeling $1 million, and I felt like the world had been lifted off my shoulders. And that's great, but following that, I always had a positive experience from actually having those sessions, but it was what was happening in between those sessions. Like I wasn't actually doing the homework on myself that was suggested to me. I wasn't implementing the right strategies to actually improve and get better. So I wasn't having these experiences so often. So I saw her on and off for probably 2 years, and then sort of just tapered off and started just getting back into day-to-day life, and still experiencing a level of anxiety, but probably wasn't as frequent as previous times. But I still felt like I'd be doing really well, and then I'd have a few too many drinks, and that would sort of just set me back 10 steps, and it was like starting all over again. I'd have to start at zero. And it wasn't until probably about 2 years ago that I really started. I just drew a line in the sand. I said, I know I can do better. I know I can get better. I know I've got a lot of work to do, but I don't. I think I'm ready to actually do the work on myself.
Yeah.
And I think, over the last few years, I've really invested a lot of time into myself, into my own self-development, and I think I've just seen my story and my journey from a different perspective. I started seeing a different psychologist about 18 months ago and built a great relationship with him, and actually spending the time to put in, behind closed doors, to actually see the benefits of of all this work. Yeah, so I've been working in the FIFO industry for nearly 8 years now. So basically, the majority of that has been whilst working through my own mental health challenges, and it's been severely challenging at times. The disconnection, the isolation from friends and family. I don't feel we have the right support in that environment, in terms of how your company supports the mental health of their employees. I think we're on the right track, but there's still a lot of improvement to be made, and there's the stigma around surrounding mental health in the mining industry is phenomenal. Like, it's still there. I guess if I could go back and give myself some advice, I'd probably go back to my really younger years as a kid, and to not worry about what other people are thinking of me, because I've always had that fear of judgment from other people, and it's held me back in a lot of different areas of my life. And it's still something I work through, and it's a challenge that I have to work through each day. But to do things for me, not for other people, to prioritise myself first, and just be okay, and actually being vulnerable with myself. It's a challenge that I still have, but I'm definitely getting better in that area.
Yeah, what was the reason why you decided to come along today to share your story? What motivated you?
Everyone has a story, and I think it is powerful to be able to share that in the hope to empower others, because we live in a world where we live in a pretty crazy time at the moment. Don't get me wrong, but we need to start normalising this, and it starts at the ground level. It starts with us, and the more impact we can have in that area, I think, we've got a long way to go, but we're doing good things.